Good morning, girls. We have covered half of this story in our online class. So now we are going to complete it in this video. We have seen that there is a giant who is very selfish. He has a garden, but he does not want others to come in that garden. He even scolds the children who were playing there. All the children run from there because they were scared of the giant. And then, now what happens? The season of spring decides not to enter his garden because he was so selfish. The trees forget to blossom. The birds don't sing there now because there is no one to listen to them and to enjoy their songs. But only 4 people who were living in that garden were so happy because it was still winter in that garden. And these people were Frost, Snow, North Wind, and Hail. All of these danced in the garden and they thought that they would live this whole year in this garden because the spring has forgotten to enter the garden. Now the giant was also very sad to see this situation, to see this condition of his garden. He also wanted the trees to blossom, the birds to come and sing in his garden, but it was not going to happen because of his selfishness. I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming, said the selfish giant, as he sat at the window and looked out at his cold white garden. I hope there will be a change in the weather. But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruits to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. He is too selfish, she said. So it was always winter there, and the north wind and the hail and the frost and the snow danced about through the trees. So what happened? The giant himself was very surprised and confused to see that the spring season was late that year. But he hoped for a change in weather. But his hopes were not going to come true. His hopes were not going to be fulfilled. Neither the spring, nor the summer, nor the autumn, no season entered his garden, and nothing beautiful could be seen in his garden. Everything was white because of the winter season. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. It was really only a little linnet singing outside his window, but it was so long since he had heard a bird sing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. So one morning, when he was just lying on his bed, he saw he heard a lovely music. He came to his window and saw a little bird singing there. It was wonderful to hear a bird singing after such a long period. Now he thought that it was a signal of spring's arrival. From his window, he saw a wonderful sight. And what was that sight? Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree, that he could see there was a little child, and the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. So, what did he see? He saw that all the children had entered the garden through a hole in the wall, and they were sitting in the trees, and the garden was full of the beauty of spring season. The trees were so happy to have the children back again. The flowers were blooming, the trees were blossoming, the birds were flying and singing, and the flowers also looked very happy. It was a lovely scene. Only in one corner it was still winter. So the whole garden was in spring, but it was still winter in one corner of the garden. Why was it so? It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still quite covered with frost and snow, and the north wind was blowing and roaring above it. "Climb up, little boy," said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. But the boy was too tiny. So, what happened? This giant saw that there was still winter in one corner of the garden. And why was it so? Because there was a child standing there. He was a very small child. He could not climb the trees, and because he could not climb the trees, the season of winter was still there. The children, if the children, if the child would have touched the tree, it would also have blossomed. But because the child was too teeny, it could not climb up the tree, so it was still winter, it was still under the effect of winter. The giant's heart melted as he looked out. "How selfish I have been," he said. "Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree, and then I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever." He was really very sorry for what he had done. So now the giant accepts and realizes his mistake, his selfishness, and he decides that his garden would be children's playground now. He would not be selfish anymore. He will be kind with everyone. He will share his things with others. So he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. The giant stole up behind the little boy and took him gently in his hand and put him up on the tree. And the tree broke at once into blossom, and the birds came and sang on it, and the little boy stretched out his two arms and flung them around the giant's neck and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running towards him. So now what happened? The giant came and helped the little boy climb up the tree. And the moment the boy sat on the tree broke at once into blossom. And spring also arrived there. The child became very happy. He hugged the giant and kissed him. All the children who were playing here and there, all of them ran towards him when they realized that he is changed now. "It is your garden." So now what the giant says? Giant says, "It is your garden now, little children," said the giant. And he took a great axe and knocked down the wall. So now what he does? He knocked down the wall, and when the people were going to the market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. So now the giant plays with the children, and everyone is amazed to see that. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant. The giant was very kind to all the children. Years went by, and the giant grew very old and feeble. He could not play about any more, so he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games, and admired his garden. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. So now he plays with the children, but with time, when he grew old, he stopped playing because he could not play anymore. So he just sits back in a huge armchair and watches the children playing. He often says that he has many beautiful flowers, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. So, this was the story, and we will do the exercise in our next class. Goodbye, children.